Hi, welcome to Church for Skeptics. I had a conversation recently with an atheist, and it was a pleasant conversation. I appreciated his attitude. But I'm hearing arguments against the existence of God, of course, and they've changed, they've evolved, let's say, over time. Here's what the young man said. He said, I'm not really an atheist. A means no, theist, God, there is no God, which is the theory of evolution. There is no God at all. His idea is I'm really just a non-theist. Now, what does that mean? It means I don't have, from his viewpoint, I don't really have a worldview against the existence of God. I just have no evidence for the existence of God. And he even said if there were evidence presented that was overwhelming, then he would quickly become a believer in God. And of course, the big point here is, on his view, there is no worldview, but there is also no evidence for the existence of God. And I'm thinking, there's no evidence for the existence of God. And of course, this comes from other atheists now. Lawrence Krauss would say that, and Sam Harris probably. I'm just a non-theist. I just don't see any evidence for the existence of God. Richard Dawkins maybe a little differently. So here's my response to that argument here. Number one, there is a worldview for atheism, or non-theism even. And the worldview that they've embraced determines what they consider to be evidence for or against the existence of God. Remember, they're not saying there is no evidence against the existence of God. They're just saying there is no evidence for it. So on that basis, then, you're a non-theist. I want to say, number one, there is a worldview, and the worldview is materialism. They have the presupposition that everything that exists is material. That's materialism. And then you put a slash with that, and then naturalism, which says that everything that happens according to the laws of nature. We might call them scientific laws. So if that's the case, the only thing that happens is by nature. And of course, then you have to explain everything by nature. You even have to explain nature itself by nature, which I think is a big problem. You can't explain anything by itself except something that is eternal, or someone that is eternal. They're self-existent in that case. The second and bigger point, I think, is that there's no evidence for the existence of God. Well, if you presuppose that nothing exists except matter, maybe you could say there is no evidence for God. I want to say there is a metaphysical reality that we can't escape. Number one being the ability to reason and have logic itself. So I'm gonna give you a couple problems here, and hopefully they'll help you, and maybe be able to share some conversations elsewhere. And I'm reading some notes here, so I try to get it right. The idea to say that nothing exists except matter means, of course, that the brain and the mind are exactly the same thing, that everything that happens, including our thoughts, our processes, our ability to reason, our logic itself, is just material. It just has weight. If it's matter, it has weight, and it takes up space. I want to say that despite the fact that my neurons, maybe not so well right now, my neurons are firing for sure, it's not, and they may convey the information that I'm giving to you. And in your ears, you may be hearing this and so forth. So there's definitely physicality involved in this, but your physical brain does not produce the information. How do I know that? Well, you can do a brain scan. I can do a brain scan, and we can find out a lot of things about the brain, but you cannot tell me what you're thinking unless you reveal it to me in some manner, and you can do it physically, of course. But the information itself is not physical. Your thoughts do not take up space. The information does not carry physical weight. And so I think there is a metaphysical reality here, of course, that can point outside of nature, outside of the materialistic worldview that they're embracing. So when an atheist says, I'm just a non-theist, I don't have any evidence for the existence of God, they do have a worldview. It's materialism. And that's the presupposition for everything that follows after that. Problem number 2, no evidence for God? Now, Richard Dawkins, but it's not just Richard Dawkins. He's more famous about this and honestly about it. His book, The God Delusion, read that a couple of times. While claiming, on the one hand, there is no evidence for God, almost every atheist would say that the world, the universe, is ubiquitous with the appearance of design. Now, it's really important that you understand that. The universe is full of the appearance. It looks like everything is designed. Whether you look from the naked eye or whether you use a telescope or a microscope, it all looks designed for a purpose. And I don't mean to expound this. We don't have time for that, of course, but just a few particulars here. The laws, there are 20 physical constants, 20 or so physical constants that are all individualized in one sense. The law of gravity, the law of expansion, which is called the cosmological constant. All those things are independent in some way, but they all have to, here's the big word, collude for life to exist. From the beginning, whatever you think the beginning was, if you think it's God created the heavens and the earth, which I do, or you think the Big Bang, it's still, everything has to happen exactly so. It appears to be designed. Think about the size of the sun and the moon and where they are, and of course the earth itself. It's just the right size, just the right distance to the moon to tilt us for seasons. So it all colludes to life. Let's look inside of us here. We have oxygen in our atmosphere. Well, we have to take that in, so we have lungs that take the oxygen into our bodies, and then we have hearts that pump the blood that carries the oxygen to the rest of our body, as well as a lot of other nutrients that we desperately need. It's like everything we need is purposely given to us. That's design. And everybody, even atheists or non-theists, let's say, would agree that the universe looks designed. How is that not evidence for the existence of a designer? How is that not evidence for the existence of God? Well, of course it is. So for somebody to say there is no evidence, on the one hand, there is no evidence for the existence of God. On the other hand, everything appeared to be designed. But what's the counter argument then? What is the better explanation than the existence of God? And here's where we've been talking for quite some time now. The better explanation on atheism or non-theism, on the better explanation on materialism, everything's only matter, everything happens naturally, including nature itself. The better explanation is Darwinian evolution. In other words, yes, it all appears to be designed, but and this is a quote from Richard Dawkins' book, it is all an illusion. The appearance of design is an illusion. It's not really designed at all. Well, what's the better explanation? Everything happened by random chance with no purpose behind it. So we just are the luck of the draw, or we beat the odds, and that's the better explanation. And there is no evidence for God. And here's where we come to. Why is that a better explanation than it looks really designed? It really, really, really looks designed. Why can't we just say God did it? There must be a designer. Well, here's the evidence against that, is there is no evidence for the existence of God. What? So are we missing something here? Am I missing something here? Maybe I am. Let's close this up a little bit here. we should embrace here. There's just something really wrong with this logically and reasonably. We should embrace Darwinian evolution because there is no evidence for God, and all of the evidence for God, that is the appearance of design, is an illusion. Not only that, get this, we're finishing by plotting ahead here. Everything about us as human beings on materialism is also an illusion. So the appearance of design is an illusion. It's just not really design. And the reason we know it's not design is because there's no evidence for the existence of God. Yeah, right. And so also, what does it mean to be human? Well, we are persons. We are someones. We live this way. We can't not live this way because we can't not be human. We are persons. We are conscious. We are aware of ourselves and our surroundings and other consciousnesses, other persons. We have free will, and free will is up for grabs a little bit, at least limited free will. In other words, we could have done otherwise. I could have made this video or not. You could be listening or not. It's your choice. There is the element of choice. Now, on materialism, that's not possible, because on materialism, everything happens by natural law. We are determined. And of course, Stephen Hawking thought that determinism was true. Richard Dawkins thinks determinism is true. There's no choice. There's really no free will. It just is an appearance of that. But here again, it's all an illusion. Well, why is it an illusion? Because there is no evidence for God. Yeah, okay. How about this one? Good and evil. This is what put me on the right track, I think, many years ago. But the existence of good and evil is just hardwired into our humanity, let's say. And if somebody doesn't have a conscience, an ability to discern between good and evil, we call them a sociopath. In other words, something's wrong. But if materialism is true, that's an illusion too. There is no real such a thing as good and evil, because nature itself doesn't have, there are no evil neurons or good neurons. They may help us survive one way or the other, but it doesn't mean that they're good. Our very existence is neither good nor evil, because it's all random, it's all chance, it just so happened. Anyway, now let me just conclude. A better explanation to God is that there is no evidence for God. Therefore, you have to embrace random, purposeless, undesigned, mindless reality. If that's true, think about this. If the appearance of design is an illusion, if my humanity is an illusion, I'm not really a person, I'm something, not someone. I'm really not conscious, I'm not aware. It's an illusion. I appear that way, but it's not that case. I don't really have free will. Everything's determined by natural law. All of those things, including my ability to reason and draw inferences, that's what logic is, partly. It's inductive reasoning, the appeal to the best explanation. If all those things are illusions, how could I possibly know that there is no evidence for God? How could I possibly know that everything is the result of chance, random, mindless, purposeless, natural occurrences? I hope you get the irony of this, and I hope you get the just terrible logic. I guess it's circular, where there is no evidence for God because the only thing that exists is material. How do we know that? Because there's no evidence for God. I hope you'll take a look at this, and I hope you'll see what you think about it. Thanks a lot for watching.